Hey, what's up? Patrick Tag here. Today I'm talking to you about the Nikon Z7, specifically a comparison between the Nikon Z7 and the new Nikon Z8. I am taking advantage of the Nikon trade-in, trade-up program, which I'm trading in my Nikon Z7, which has been my go-to camera for the past 2.5 years, trading up to the new Nikon Z8, which is more or less Nikon's baby flagship, baby version of the Nikon Z9, which I don't have for comparison purposes here. But nonetheless, Nikon Z8 and the Z7. I've been a huge fan of the Z7 since I got it back in 2021. I got it used. I got it along with the 24-70 f4 kit lens, and it's been my go-to. I've loved every moment with this camera. I originally started the Nikon mirrorless game with the Z5. It was the yellow program in 2020. About a couple months after they released the Z5, I decided to take my first foray into the mirrorless system. And I was very happy making that transition from DSLRs, Nikon DSLRs specifically, into the Nikon mirrorless world. I auto detect, just can't beat it. So for that reason, once I made the conversion from DSLRs to Nikon's mirrorless cameras, going with the Z7 was kind of the natural, at least for me, the natural next step because I wanted a high megapixel landscape specific camera. Now, a couple downsides that I found when I made this conversion was the fact that there's only one card slot for an XQD and a CF Express B card. And to me, it wasn't a make or break situation. I could still go and do photography for landscapes, cityscapes, travel, and it wouldn't necessarily prohibit me from enjoying the experience. But I could understand for event photographers, wedding photographers, that could be a real setback because you don't have that second card body and the backup capability. So while I'm traveling, of course, that would not be great to lose all of the footage and all of the photos, but I fortunately never had any catastrophic card failure. So it didn't apply. I was able to get all of my photography needs done with one card slot, and that was great. I didn't have any issue with that. But the Z8 solved that issue. It has two card slots. And more specifically, it brings back an SD card slot. Talk about awesome. I can immediately take that SD card, upload it to my MacBook Pro, have all the footage, have all the photos I need, whether it's for a client, whether it's for my own traveling purposes, landscape, cityscape. So that is a massive upgrade that I found when it comes to the Z8 versus the Z7. Especially if I do weddings or if I do event photography, getting those moments, you have that backup, that peace of mind of a second card slot. Another key difference, in addition to a bunch of key differences, but to me, my focus area for this video at least, before I send this back to Nikon, key focus area for me is just the ability to, I do this gently here, not have an exposed sensor when I'm changing lenses. Again, if I'm traveling, if I'm doing on-location shooting, if I'm even in a city, even in a room, I don't feel comfortable having that sensor exposed because it just leads to dust. It leads to particulates. I'm gonna have to take the time to remove those in post. It's just not an enjoyable thought that I have to go through when I'm actually shooting with the Z7. Again, I love the Z7. I love the form factor. Specifically, I find it fits right in the hand. But I've learned that there are some ways to minimize the sensor exposure. For example, I think you could take out the battery and that would shut the shutter, and then you could change lenses. But that's a convoluted process, and it also kills the internal computing power and computer systems of the Z7 while you're actually using it. So to me, that wasn't a very helpful process. Additionally, I've started to use the Peak Design micro clutch, and there's a plate that goes right underneath it. I'm currently using it on my Z30, so I can't show it to you, but actually it's on my Z8. It's right here. And you cannot actually access the battery. And for that reason, I can't do that little hack to get the shutter to drop. So instead, what I found myself is just risking it, trying to protect the sensor however I could, but it's not a very ideal solution. On the other hand, the Z8 has the ability, if you turn it on in settings, to actually have it's not a shutter, but for lack of a better term, the shutter door close every time you are changing out lenses. That's massive. For example, I just got back from a trip to the national parks in Utah and Arizona. Having the ability to change lenses on location because of this shutter door is awesome. Again, there's no perfect way of mitigating exposure of the sensor to the sand and the inclement conditions. Having that shutter door is definitely an upgrade compared to the Z7 that doesn't have the ability to do that. So for that reason, switching to the Z8 was a major upgrade, especially for travel and landscape photography. So again, we just wrapped up our comparison of the Z7 and the Z8. My touch points specifically were around the primary concerns really for the Z7 has been just the single memory card slot compared to the Z8, which has two, including CF Express, XQD, and an SD card, as well as the exposed sensor when you're changing lenses on location. Z7 has that, Z6 II and the Z5 also have that, compared to the closed off shutter door of the Z8, which for me is a big game changer. Sadly, yes, the form factor to me of the Z7 and the weight of the Z7 and the power of the Z7 has been great for the past 2.5 years, but trading this in to trade up to the Z8, pretty excited. I'm not gonna lie, I can't wait to get this out in the field for events, weddings, headshots, portraitures. So far, like I said, I've used it primarily for the landscape astrophotography that I did on my last trip last week, but nonetheless, excited to put it through the paces throughout the whole complement of what I do for photography, and sorry to see this go. I loved the Z7 while I had it, trading up to the Z8 now. Let's do this. Thanks for joining. Patrick Teig here. Like and subscribe. See you on the next one.